I think that TCU, I've always had the greatest respect in the world for TCU, and I know that I recruited in this area, and I know that they get fine athletes. And of course, this is what I'm interested in as far as having a winning football team. This is what it takes. You have to have the real fine athletes. And they've got a lot of them out here. And I've had the fortune of spending 9 years out in the great state of Texas in the Southwest Conference. Certainly, I'm looking forward to many more happy and successful years like those were. I know Jane and I both are real pleased and real happy, and we're looking forward to many happy years at TCU.
One of the most dreaded words in all of sports is if. And TCU lays claim to perhaps the biggest, most overlooked what-if in college football history. Well, besides that one.
October 30th, TCU coach Jim Pittman suffered a heart attack and died during the Frogs' win over Baylor.
That's 20 straight losses, 12 straight losing seasons, the worst team in college football.
I didn't think we were ever going to get out from under this cloud of tragedy.
Is TCU cursed?
Well, yeah, now that you bring it up.
Can one tragic night alter the direction of a football program?
We were set to go in a polar opposite direction of what we went.
Does a butterfly flapping his wings in Brazil produce a tornado in Texas?
Could all this heartbreak have been avoided?
Nothing can compare to the suspense, the thrills, the heartbreak, and the heroics of Southwest Conference football.
In the early days, TCU was a national powerhouse. During the 30s, 40s, and 50s, TCU had more national championships, conference championships, All-Americans, and bowl invites than any other team in the Southwest Conference. But it couldn't last forever.
You've got this long span where you had Dutch to Abe, and Abe was starting to age, and TCU was starting to fade a little bit. It was back in the day when TCU still kind of promoted from within. So they took the step to hire Fred Taylor, who had been a long-time assistant of Abe's and had been the freshman coach. And for 4 years, they kind of rattled around at 3 wins, 4 wins, but didn't really move the program ahead of where it had been in Abe's late years.
Well, when I first got there, we were kind of in a pickle. I mean, we weren't very good. He was a player's coach. He was a nice guy. You could be late to meetings and get away with it. You know, you might even miss a meeting.
I think it was okay. Fred Taylor, I think he had a bad rap because we had some tough schedules, and we had Ohio State and Columbus. They were number 1. We played Texas when they were number 1 in Austin. Played Arkansas, they were number 2. We played them in Little Rock, and we lost them by big margins too. And so we just didn't have the talent. In the 3 years I played, we actually played in 3 corners of the United States. We played in Seattle, Washington. We played in Pennsylvania, Penn State, and we played in Miami, Florida.
Actually, Abe Martin recruited me. Had I met Fred Taylor, honestly, I don't know that I would have gone to TCU. Bless his heart. Boys, you just got to go out there and give it all you got. I mean, it was just like, no, let's go get them.
After the football season of my freshman year, which back in that era, freshmen were not eligible to play on varsity. We had our own freshman team. We were the Wogs. I actually considered transferring. And I was thinking about going to play baseball somewhere. It was time for a change. And fortunately, I think TCU hired the right person in getting Jim Pittman.
He played at Mississippi State for Darrell Royal, and Darrell Royal saw something in him and said, "You're going to be a great coach," and he was on Royal staff for years and years and was well thought of, and then got the job at Tulane as a head coach and turned them around almost instantly. I mean, took them to the Liberty Bowl, and that was about the time Tulane had backed out of the SEC and was going independent. So, I mean, it wasn't an easy job. All of a sudden, he was a hot commodity. He was only 46 years old. My dad had friends on the UT staff, including Mike Campbell, who was Royal's right-hand man and assistant head coach. I've been around him years ago when he said, when TCU hired Jim, we knew we were in for a tussle.
Before TCU hired him, I wouldn't even give him the time of day. Tulane was bottom feeders, kind of like we were. And in 2 years or 3 years, he took them bowl game. He said, yeah, we're just going to turn the program around.
Well, I believe that TCU had more to offer than the other schools that I looked at.
Oh gosh, Pittman was a wild man. He came in there, he was determined to run anybody off that didn't want to be there.
As you know, it's not how much you know, but how much you can get across to those young men.
We had well over 20 players leave the program during spring training. And it wasn't unusual in the middle of the night for 1 or 2 or 3 guys just to leave the dorm, get in their car and drive off and not even tell anybody goodbye.
And those tour days, or the spring and the tour days, were incredibly tough. I mean, on all of us.
He kind of let his underlings kind of run the program, and they could talk stuff to you that you couldn't believe they were saying. Even back in the days, they'd grab you by your helmet, jerk you around.
This new coaching staff, leaves you that, inspiration. They're going to get us all fired up. I know they are because I've seen it in spring, I've seen it this fall.
He just demanded your respect. I mean, in other words, you respected him immediately. You knew he was somebody. I mean, that's the way he carried himself.
You just respected the quality of his voice. Just the sound of it was, yes, sir.
Jim Pittman was a Marine. He didn't put up with a lot. He was going to run, a 4-4 defense. He was going to run the wishbone. I mean, they're going to look like UT in purple.
I came to TCU for one reason. That was to build a winning team here, and this is my last chance, and third time it's charmed.
He wanted to make a statement when he came, and that's the reason we went to the lavender uniforms. He wanted something different.
I'm colorblind anyway, so it didn't really matter to me too much, but I liked him.
One of the things that Pittman instilled was what he called room check. Once a week, an assistant coach would come by the dormitory and go into every room and check the neatness of the room, looking inside the closet to make sure all the dirty clothes weren't on the floor. We had a lavatory in each room. Coaches would go to the lavatory, and if there was a hair off your head in the lavatory, you had to run the next morning.
And he said, we're not going to have facial hair, we're not going to have afros, and that's the reason the 4 blacks left. All 4 of them are all Southwest Conference.
There were some good players, Ray Rhodes and Hodges Mitchell. I mean, there were some players that decided to leave because they felt a little bit picked on.
They started missing practice. They started being late to meetings. I think they were looking for a reason, because I don't think they'd ever been treated like that, which really and truly they probably shouldn't have been. I mean, they didn't get treated any different than the white boys did. 2 of the best running backs in the country left. Larry was as good as there was at defensive end.
When Coach Taylor was there was a double standard. When Pittman, he said everybody's going to shave. You had to be clean shaven, no hair over your ears, and no sideburns past half of the ear. I can remember hearing that Larry Dibble said that he wouldn't shave his beard for his own mom. He said, damn near not going to shave it for this coach.
That was such a tumultuous time, and there was a lot of racial unrest and, a lot of change in society, and college football wasn't going to be any different. In 1971, you're just starting to get the influx of African-American players into Division I major college football. Alabama still hadn't done it at the time.
That time between spring and the next 2 days were the adjustment periods. If you were still on the team after that adjustment period, you were going to be treated pretty fairly.
It was a tough spring training, and I hated to see teammates leave, but those of us that stayed really bonded.
If Coach Jim is as successful here at TCU as he has been at Tulane, these empty stands will soon be full of supporting fans for the Frogs.
There's a new look at TCU, and I think it'll be an exciting one.
With a tumultuous offseason behind them, TCU was ready to begin the Jim Pittman era.
The improvement that a team makes after its first game is probably the greatest that it makes all during the season. This has always been true as long as I've been in the profession, and certainly with a new coaching staff taking over.
After a dominant 42-0 win over UTA, TCU would face a baptism by fire with back-to-back road games against ranked opponents. TCU fell to number 17 Washington and their quarterback Sonny Six-Killer 44-26 before dropping their Southwest Conference opener to Arkansas 49-15. Finally back home for Week 4, TCU got off the schneid against Oklahoma State with a 14-14 tie.
We shouldn't have tied that game. We were going in for the touchdown to win it and fumbled down on the 10-yard line. Now, if we'd have won that game, we were told we would have had a bowl game, which we hadn't had in quite a while.
We were just kind of all pulling together at that time, trying to get everything together. We'd go to the weight room after practice. We'd go work out after practice even.
Up next was rival Texas A&M, who TCU had only lost to 3 times in their previous 13 tries. Pittman's Frogs weren't about to break that trend, beating the Aggies a third year in a row, 14-3.
Our group coming in all the way through, we never lost A&M, ever. On the freshman team, you had to wear your beanie. I don't know if you even know what that is. They made you wear it until you beat A&M. You had to wear that beanie even in the shower or get beat up by the varsity guys.
Back then, hazing was a big deal. You know, it has its place. And I remember after we won our first freshman game, those guys that we thought were a-holes were coming around hugging our necks and saying everything, and we had to have those little beanies. We got to take our beanies off, which they were horrible.
TCU's biggest test of the season by far came in Happy Valley against number 7 Penn State. It was a resounding defeat for the Frogs, but another opportunity to see how Pittman's group was measuring up against the nation's best.
They had 7 players drafted in the first 2 rounds of the NFL draft. Franco Harris was a blocking fullback on that team, and he went on to become the all-time leading rusher in the NFL. And then they had an All-American safety named John Capoletti, who 2 years later won the Heisman Trophy as a running back.
That Penn State team, bar none, was the best group of athletes on a football team I've ever played against, bar none. And they proved it when they played Texas in the Cotton Bowl.
Started off rough, kind of. But I had a feeling we kind of talked about, we felt like we were getting better. Maybe this is kind of getting turned around.
At 2-3-1, TCU was battle-tested, and they would need it because they were about to face a challenge that no other college football team has ever faced in history.
At the time they roll into Waco, they're in a 4-way tie for first place in the Southwest Conference. The program had a pulse. That's a high-pressure job. I mean, whether it's today or 1971, I mean, he's coming in and he's wanting to make a splash in a hurry. And the first years of coaching staff changes, it's always tough.
I think it was the day before Halloween. Just another game, another conference game that we needed to win.
I had read in a paper or heard somewhere or another that when Coach Pittman was still down in Tulane that he had had a heart attack. TCU kind of covered that up or didn't disclose that. I assume TCU knew that, or if it's true, I assume it's true.
He'd have to go to his doctor in Lafayette, I think, Louisiana or wherever. He'd go to his doctors down there every now and then, and he'd be late to practice or whatever. I'd say, where's Coach? Well, he's down there to check it out his health.
On game days, we would meet as a team, and he had a handout sheet of rules. He called it Rules of the Kicking Game. And we had a team meeting room built onto the basketball coliseum. And we were meeting in that room on the day of the game. It was a night game. And he had sweat rings under his arm that went all the way to his waist. And I said, something's not right with Coach Pittman.
He looked like he was not feeling very good. Just kind of moping around a little bit. He didn't usually do that. He'd come around and pat you on the butt and tell you what what to do, but he was a little passive that night. And some of the other coaches keep checking on him and stuff, and I just remember seeing that, and I'm going like, maybe he doesn't feel good or something.
The Baylor game started off, it was, a nice evening. We sat in what would have been the northwest corner of the stadium looking across at the TCU sideline. We were down probably around maybe the 10-yard line, it feels like.
We were down on the 40-yard line. We'd driven it probably 20 or 30 yards, and we were going in for a score.
Coach Pittman and I just idolized the guy. I idolized him so much so that I literally would always find out where he was on the sideline, and that's where I would go. I remember seeing him, looking at the play, off the offense running the ball, and then I looked up to see him, and then I went back and we were watching, and then I looked back again, and I literally saw him falling next to me.
And out of the corner of my eye, I could see Coach Pittman fall backwards. And my memory is he fell like a big tree falling. And the first thing that hit the ground was the back of his head.
And when he hit the ground, from my perspective, I knew he was dead. His heart exploded on him.
I just happened to glance to the sideline to see what was going on, and just in that moment I saw him fall, and I told my parents and brother, I said Pittman fell. And we look over and I'm like, well, he just got tangled up in some cords or headset cords, something, I expected he would pop back up, and he didn't.
I looked over at him to get the play, and one time I looked over at him and he was on the ground, and I didn't know what was going on, and I ran over to the referee and I said, you need to call timeout. And he said, you want to call timeout? I said, no, I want you to call timeout because the coach is down.
Steve Judy called timeout and was running towards the sideline, and I'm going like, what's he doing? Why are we calling timeout now?
So we ran over there, and I could tell he was gasping for breath, or I guess maybe swallowed his tongue, I don't know. So they rushed him to the hospital, and ironically, the assistant athletic director, Buster Brannon, had taken him to the hospital prior to that, thinking he had a heart attack, and took the ambulance. So they took Pittman in just a regular car to the hospital.
We still had quite a bit of time left in the first half, so we went ahead and scored on that drive.
Baylor had the most funky stadium. It's almost like a high school stadium, and the facilities for the guys. It was like a dungeon.
We carried on, and then at halftime we went in, and the coaches told us that he had passed. And I'm sorry.
It was like a fog in the locker room, like a horror show type of feeling. It was just, you can't comprehend how bad it felt because I was so shocked. Really traumatized by what had happened. To try to get ourselves motivated to come back out of that locker room at halftime was a very, very, very hard thing. For me, I can't speak for everyone else.
We had a prayer at that time. Before we went back out the second quarter, everybody's wondering whether we're going to play or not, but we did. And I remember there was linemen were wiping some tears out of their eyes, but we went on and played.
Word came down, I guess around halftime, the rain is on us. I hear, Coach Pittman has died on the sideline. That's just so wild, man. For any program, can you imagine you're at the game and your coach dies?
We were taught to play football, and we weren't going to give up. If we were going to play, we were going to play to win. And everybody took it upon themselves to win the game for him.
Well, I'll tell you what, I caught 2 passes that game, and the one that I caught that put us ahead, I'm just running across the middle, and all of a sudden he just throws the ball, and I catch it, but I don't know how I did it. It was like something just happened, and I just ended up with the ball. I was like, God, how did I catch that? I didn't even see it coming hardly, I still today don't even know how I caught the ball. I don't know how Steve got it into me.
Oh, it was a big relief, big relief.
That was something I'll never forget.
After Coach Pittman died on the sidelines, it was hard to gather ourselves, but his pre-season workouts, the two-a-days and all that, the guys that made it through all that respected him so much that that's what caused us to be able to rally.
Fortunately, we won the game, but unfortunately, we lost our coach.
And I remember meeting in the center of the field with the Baylor team and having a prayer at the end of the game. And then it was a long, silent bus ride back to Fort Worth.
It was a Monday after that weekend game. I remember sitting there during the funeral. I was going, you know, the guy was late in his career and he was doing what he loved. He was getting ready to retire. This is in my mind. I look back now and he was 46. And I was 21. I thought 46 was ancient at 21. He was in the prime of his career. Practice, it was weird not having him there.
Yeah, that was kind of eerie. It was a very slow, you know, just kind of a walkthrough.
The football game wasn't on TV, so me and two of my friends were at the hockey game. And they announced it over the loudspeaker there at the hockey game. It's pretty sad. I was going, oh hell, we're fixing to get a new head coach, you know. And you know, they didn't hire somebody outside. They just moved Billy Toehill up.
We believe very strongly in Jim Pittman, and we knew that he believed very strongly in Billy Toehill.
They lose Pittman, they've got to move fast. Pittman had put together a great staff. Billy Toehill, who was kind of a firebrand young coach in his 30s, who was, you know, handling the defense. For the sake of continuity, they elevated him to head coach.
I'm certainly proud that the people have this type of confidence in me as a football coach and as a person to represent the university and to become a leader of their football players and try to carry on the program that Pitt had gotten started here.
I'll probably be criticized, but he was not as disciplined as Coach Pittman. I mean, he was a great guy, a nice guy, but I mean, he was not Jim Pittman, I mean, frankly.
Well, Coach Toehill was respected by our team, but did not have the same leadership skills that Coach Pittman had.
We just all gathered up and said, "Hey, we're going to finish this game this year strong," and we did.
We won that game on a walk-off field goal. And then the next game against SMU in Dallas, we won that game on a walk-off field goal.
SMU was a formidable team during those days. As a kid, I had dreamed of playing in the Cotton Bowl. That was one of my favorite all-time memories. We finished 5-2 in conference play. We were on the cusp of turning the corner and being one of the best teams in the Southwest Conference. I think through the spring training that we went through, and we had weeded out anybody that didn't really want to be there.
I think it had to do a lot with the players we had. Ronnie Peoples and Lyle Blackwood, those were great leaders. They were winners, you know.
We were extremely proud, and we really felt like that we were going to be able to move forward and be really good the next year. And then we had more tragedy.
I'll be my own self. I'll coach exactly the way I coach, and I don't plan to pattern myself after any particular person.
think that's the wrong thing to do. I think it's a good way for a man to lose his job real quick.
Finishing a season strong for Coach Pittman with a battle-tested group was one thing. Continuing to build with an unproven, emotionally broken head coach was quite another.
I mean, TCU was looking for some continuity, and I get it. So the powers that be said, okay, Coach Stohill, bring it on. But, you know, he was the first in a line of coaches that really struggled over the next several years. I mean, they really struggled to win football games.
Billy and Coach Pittman were very close friends. You know, they'd come from Louisiana. But, yeah, I think that hurt Billy a lot.
He was drinking and, you know, ran off the road.
He had this very large Lincoln Continental, which back in those days, they didn't use plastic on cars, they were all metal. He had a support column on I-35 and just destroyed that car. He was lucky to live through it. He ended up having his leg amputated at just above the knee. Fall practice of '73, after the accident, he used a golf cart to kind of get around the football field to still coach. And his goal was to walk onto the field his first game. And he got a prosthetic made, but the wound had not fully healed. And I remember looking at his pants leg, and he had blood all around his knee.
When we got through the Billy Tohill there and they bring in Jim Schaffner. Jim Schaffner came in there and said he's going to run a pro offense. And we're looking around going, well, there is not a pro-style quarterback in the quarterback room. The first team meeting we had with him, he came in there and he told us a joke. Everybody laughed. And then he got up there and says, well, I'll tell you guys, this is going to be a little different. We're going to be more like professionals around here rather than college. He said, you don't have to call me coach. He said, I don't have a whole lot of rules. He said, we're not going to have a curfew. And he said, now I'm going to tell you guys, you can go out and party. You're men now. He said, I'm not going to tell you can't drink. So I'm just going to tell you can't get drunk and you can't destroy school property. And that was his rules.
That's probably where the program bottomed out. He had a hard time recruiting. Went 2-31 over his time.
When I came to school, we referred to it as the dark years. We won 4 games while I was at TCU, so it was dismal at best. There were tumbleweeds in the stands.
I tell people, you don't know what bad football is. I do. And it was really bad when you're winning less than 20 games in a 13, 14-year span, and I mean, losing them bad. It was tough. It wasn't fun, but we were there. There might be 5,000 people in the stadium for a Rice game. We were there. Our joke was, we may be small, but we're slow.
The Schaffner era is most remembered for running back Kent Waldrop, who broke his neck against Alabama and was paralyzed from the neck down. He would go on to play a major role in the passage of the Americans with Disabilities Act. TCU won 15 games from 1972 to 1983. A brief glimmer of hope appeared under Jim Wacker with a Bluebonnet Bowl season in '84, but it was quickly extinguished by one of the Southwest Conference's most punitive pay-for-play scandals. Note that I said one of. In all, TCU enjoyed just 4 winning seasons from 1972 to 1997 and was left to wander the college football wilderness when the Southwest Conference collapsed.
I played in the time TCU football everybody wanted to forget, but yeah, it was pretty much horrible.
The butterfly effect is a behavior of certain kinds of systems where that if you change very slightly an initial condition, the outcome of the system is very different. Edward Lorenz had very simple weather systems that he was evaluating with a series of simulations. He rounded off numbers very slightly in his weather simulation and got completely different outcomes. A decade later, in a presentation he made, the title of the presentation was, "Does a butterfly flapping his wings in Brazil produce a tornado in Texas?" Most systems involve feedback, and so if we make a decision, that decision doesn't just affect what happens to us immediately, but there's kind of a feedback loop. A drastic change can result from a simple decision.
Had he not passed away, I honestly believe our whole program would, just by the time I graduated, no telling where we would have been.
Do you think things might have ended up differently if Coach Pittman did not die?
I know they would have. Yeah, I don't think Billy would have had that wreck.
I think there would have been a whole lot different. I mean, you know, he was basically the program's, leader for all of 10 months. in only 2 months of a season. You know, after he dies in late October, I mean, they go on and continue to win and knock out 6 wins and finish well. Would have been very interesting to see what they did recruiting-wise. He ought to be remembered as a guy that made a hell of a lot of difference in a short period of time. And it's unfortunate that his life was cut short and his impact on TCU, which could have been monumental, was cut short as well.
They used to rank the bottom 10 teams in college football, and we were number 1 in the poll of the bottom 10. We were set to go in a polar opposite direction of what we went.
You know, we never did have a good recruiting year after my class. If Dibbles and Ray Rhodes and that bunch, if they would have stayed there, and then you'd have had my recruiting class that next year, and then have, you know, maybe one more recruiting class comparable to my class, yeah, I think we'd have been all right.
Unless you're a real good, real big fan, you're going to try to forget those years. You know, like you said, that was 71 was the last winning season for TCU for, what, 20 years? I mean, Jesus, people just, they wanted to forget about it, and they did.
You know, even in the book, you know, the one that Dan Jenkins did, the TCU Vault, you know, he had all these pages against all these different decades, and ours, I think, is about a page and a quarter.
Jim Pittman was sending a message, not just to his players and people within the athletic department, but he was sending a message to donors as well that you've got to invest, you've got to put money into the program. And you know, in the mid-60s, Chancellor Mowdy was in charge at TCU, and that's when Texas was starting to really ramp up the arms race, and Arkansas was, and A&M was, and TCU decided, you know what, we're in a good conference. We're going to continue like we are, and opted, you know, not to pursue that. And you know, they didn't reduce funding, but they didn't add to it in the athletic department. And I think the lesson learned there is you've got to change with the times. You've got to keep investing, and you've got to make the moves that you need to move to keep your program relevant.
You know, the last 25 years have made all that suffering, you know, worth it, I would say.
Thank God we hired Coach Patterson, and the rest is history.
We just won the Rose Bowl.